Paul McCartney. You won't believe this, Paul McCartney once admitted that the woman who broke up the Beatles also broke his heart. For decades, he hid the truth. She wasn't just the wedge between him and John Lennon. She was the reason Paul felt replaced, sidelined, and heartbroken. But his story isn't just about lost friendship. It's about survival, love, mistakes, and some shocking confessions that even his biggest fans didn't see coming. Let's rewind, because Paul's story starts in a world already at war. He was born on June 18, 1942, right in the middle of the Liverpool bombings. His mom was a nurse, his dad worked in cotton sales, and little Paul grew up dodging air raids. His father joked that Paul came out looking like a lump of raw meat red, screaming, one eye open. Not exactly the poetic beginning you'd expect for one of the greatest songwriters of all time. From the start, Paul's childhood was tough. At just 5 years old, he whacked a boy with a metal bar during a school fight, and school only got harder. His mom was Catholic, his dad Protestant, and that made him a target. The bullying was relentless. But here's the thing. Those battles gave Paul a grit that would show up again and again in his music. Then came the moment that shattered him. In 1956, his mother Mary died from breast cancer. She was just 47. Paul was only 14. He didn't even know she was sick until it was too late. His first thought? Not grief, not tears, but worry. What will we do without her money? That guilt haunted him for years. Soon after, he wrote his first song, I Lost My Little Girl. Years later, her voice would come to him in a dream, whispering, Let it be. That dream became one of the Beatles' most legendary songs. But fate wasn't done with Paul. In 1957, at a church fair, he saw a scruffy teenager strumming guitar John Lennon. John was cocky, funny, and magnetic. Paul blew him away by flipping a guitar upside down and belting out 20 Flight Rock flawlessly. In that moment, a friendship was born. And it wasn't just music, it was grief, too. John had just lost his mother Julia in an accident. Paul had lost his mom the year before. That shared pain bound them tighter than anything. Soon, they were writing songs face to face in Paul's bedroom, hammering out melodies, laughing, fighting, and building what would become the greatest songwriting partnership of all time. But it wasn't perfect. Paul froze during his very first solo on stage with John's band. Humiliated, he almost quit music entirely. Instead, he handed lead guitar to a younger kid named George Harrison. That decision changed music forever. By the 1,960 seconds, the Beatles were grinding through Hamburg's 6-hour sets in smoke-filled clubs. Paul reluctantly picked up the bass when Stuart Sutcliffe quit. That violin-shaped Hofner would become part of his identity. And when they finally landed Brian Epstein as a manager, things exploded. In 1964, they stormed America on The Ed Sullivan Show. 73 million people tuned in. It was Beatlemania screaming fans, record-smashing hits, chaos everywhere. But the cracks came fast. In 1966, the band was nearly killed in Manila after accidentally offending the Marcos family. In 1967, their manager Brian Epstein died suddenly, leaving them lost. And in 1968, something happened that Paul never forgave. Yoko Ono walked into their sacred studio space. She touched their instruments, sat by John during recordings, broke their just the lads rule. Paul later admitted, it was a guy thing, and she broke it. John didn't care. He chose Yoko. Paul felt abandoned. Tensions boiled during the White Album. Paul tried to control everything, even playing other people's parts. George hated it. Ringo walked out. John sank deeper into Yoko's world. Paul desperately tried to glue them together with the Get Back project, but instead, the cameras captured the end of the Beatles. In April 1970, Paul dropped the bomb he was leaving. His bandmates found out in the newspapers. Imagine that betrayal. By the end of the year, Paul was suing the others in court, trying to wrestle their music away from shady managers. John fired back with one of the most brutal diss tracks in history, "How Do You Sleep?" He sneered that Paul's music was yesterday's news. The friendship was dead, and after John's murder in 1980, Paul admitted he never got to make peace. "It felt like I was arguing with a ghost," he said. But Paul didn't stop. He built Wings with his wife Linda, and despite early failures, they scored massive success with Band on the Run and stadium tours. For a while, Paul was unstoppable until 1980, when he was arrested in Japan with nearly half a pound of marijuana. He spent 9 days in jail. Wings collapsed. Behind the music, Paul's private life was just as dramatic. His love with Linda lasted 3 decades. When she died in 1998, he was destroyed. He said simply, "I lost my girlfriend." His second marriage to Heather Mills was chaos, ugly court battles, wild accusations of violence, and a divorce that cost him tens of millions. His third marriage, to Nancy Shevell, came with its own rumors, mafia whispers, and side-eye from fans. Even his friendships turned sour. Michael Jackson, who once sang duets with Paul, snatched the Beatles' song catalog out from under him for $47 at million. Paul was crushed. He had literally taught Michael about investing in publishing. Michael once joked, "I'll own your songs." Then he did. But here's the thing, Paul never gave up. In 2018, at age 76, he released Egypt Station. It went straight to #1 in America, his first in decades. In 2024, he finally released One Hand Clapping, a live session recorded 50 years earlier. On it, he sang 20 Flight Rock, the same song that made John Lennon invite him into the band. At 82, in years old, it was like Paul was handing the world a time capsule. And maybe that's the lesson. Through bombings, grief, betrayal, lawsuits, drugs, and heartbreak, Paul McCartney kept going. He wasn't just the cute Beatle. He was tough, stubborn, vulnerable, and, most of all, unbreakable. So here's my question for you. What's the one Paul McCartney moment that shocked you the most? Was it the split? The arrest? The Michael Jackson betrayal? Drop your thoughts below. I'd love to hear them. And hey, if you enjoyed this deep dive, hit like, subscribe, and share it with a Beatles fan. Because trust me, this is only the beginning of Paul's story.